Hello everyone. From the earliest moments of consciousness, each human being begins to direct their psychic energy in a particular direction, a flow that underlies their preferences, behaviors, and ways of engaging with the world. This fundamental attitude of the psyche is what I have called introversion and extroversion, not superficial personality traits, but primary orientations of the libido or life force. The introvert turns their energy inward, while the extrovert turns it outward. This distinction is not merely descriptive, but essential for understanding the way a person lives, thinks, feels, and dreams. The introvert finds their source of energy in the internal world. They are drawn to ideas, memories, images, and inner processes. Their reality is mediated through thought and reflection before action is taken. They are often contemplative, reserved, and sensitive to the weight of external stimulation. It is not that they dislike people or the outer world, but that they must retreat from it to regain balance and clarity. These orientations also shape a person's spiritual and symbolic life. The introvert is often drawn to mysticism, dreams, and introspective forms of meditation. They seek to understand the inner archetypes and unconscious patterns that move beneath the surface of things. The extrovert is more likely to find meaning in service, community, and the visible manifestations of the sacred in the world. Neither path is better than the other. Both are valid expressions of the human journey. The challenge lies in recognizing which path dominates and where the imbalance may lie. Understanding the orientation of psychic energy is the beginning of self-knowledge. It is not a final answer, but a doorway through which one must walk with patience and honesty. The ego prefers simplicity and certainty, but the soul demands complexity and paradox. Each of us is a constellation of forces, some known, some hidden, all seeking expression. To ask whether one is an introvert or an extrovert is not to seek a label, but to begin the deeper task of balancing opposites, integrating the unconscious and coming closer to the self. Within every psychological type lies not only its strength, but also the seed of its potential imbalance. When one consistently lives according to a dominant attitude, be it introverted or extroverted, a certain psychic inflation occurs. The favored function becomes rigid, over-relied upon, and defended at the expense of its opposite. What was once a natural orientation of energy becomes a prison of habit, and the unconscious begins to rebel. This rebellion often appears as psychological disturbance, misdirection, or profound dissatisfaction. Thus, while the introvert and the extrovert may both possess admirable qualities, each is vulnerable to specific dangers rooted in their preferred way of being. For the introvert, whose energy turns inward, the peril lies in excessive withdrawal. Their rich inner life, while a source of creativity and depth, can become disconnected from the reality that demands participation. In this condition, the introvert may become so preoccupied with inner images and reflections that the outer world begins to feel threatening, intrusive, or simply irrelevant. Encounters with others may provoke anxiety, not because of inherent social ineptitude, but because the psychic balance has tipped too far inward. The introvert may come to prefer the fantasy of relationship over its actual messiness, or idealized intellectual concepts over practical application. In extreme cases, the world may be experienced only through abstraction or philosophical distance, leading to paralysis in action or alienation from society. At a deeper level, the introvert's danger lies in becoming possessed by their inner contents, dreams, thoughts, judgments that remain untested against reality. The ego, identifying too strongly with the inner world, begins to inflate itself with ideas of superiority, believing it sees more clearly than those around it. This can manifest as aloofness, cynicism, or even misanthropy. The introvert forgets that their insight, while profound, is partial or profound. Without engagement with the world, the inner life can become distorted, a hall of mirrors reflecting only what the ego wishes to see. The neglected extroverted attitude, buried in the unconscious, returns in shadowy forms, impulsive outbursts, overwhelming desires, or sudden envy of others, ease in the outer world. The extrovert, by contrast, faces the opposite dilemma. Their energy, turned outward, thrives in movement, interaction, and external accomplishment. Their attention is attuned to trends, people, and practical matters. But when this attitude becomes exclusive, the extrovert becomes too dependent on external validation. Their sense of identity begins to rest upon their ability to perform, impress, or conform to the expectations of the collective. In this state, the extrovert may lose contact with their inner voice. They may fill their lives with constant activity, not out of joy, but to avoid the silence in which the repressed self might speak. The extrovert's danger is in being swallowed by the demands of the outer world, losing themselves in roles, obligations, and surface-level goals. They may appear successful, popular, even charismatic, yet experience a gnawing emptiness beneath the surface. This emptiness arises because the unconscious introverted function has been neglected. Dreams are dismissed, emotions are rationalized, and solitude is avoided. The ego becomes inflated with a sense of control, but this control is brittle. When outer success falters, through failure, rejection, or isolation, the extrovert may face a crisis. Suddenly, the inner world they have ignored emerges with force, confronting them with unfamiliar feelings, unprocessed memories, and existential questions they are ill-equipped to answer. In both types, the rejected attitude does not vanish. It becomes shadow, active in the unconscious, influencing choices, creating projections, and manifesting as conflict or suffering. The introvert's repressed extroversion might emerge in explosive social behavior or secret longings for connection they are too proud to admit. The extrovert's buried introversion may erupt in anxiety, depression, or irrational fears when the facade of outer strength collapses. The psyche demands wholeness. What is denied will return. These inner risks are not failures of character, but natural consequences of psychic imbalance. B. The goal is not to eliminate one's dominant type, but to become conscious of it, to see how it limits perception and behavior, and how the neglected opposite holds vital qualities necessary for integration. The introvert needs the courage to act, to speak, to be seen. The extrovert needs the strength to reflect, to listen, to descend into the quiet spaces within. Only by facing these risks directly can the individual begin the path toward individuation. This is why psychological development requires more than self-affirmation. It demands confrontation with what we fear and avoid in ourselves. It is through this confrontation that true transformation occurs, not a rejection of who we are, but an expansion. To know the dangers of one's type is to begin the work of becoming whole. The recognition that no one is purely introverted or extroverted marks a profound turning point in self-understanding. While one tendency may dominate, shaping how a person thinks, feels, and acts, the opposite resides in the unconscious, shaping our behavior in subtle and often unacknowledged ways. This dynamic interplay of opposites forms the foundation of psychological tension and potential growth. To truly know ourselves, we must attune not only to our dominant orientation, but also to the inferior function hidden in the shadow. It is here, in the unlived aspect of our nature, that transformative possibilities reside. Life rarely demands pure intention in one direction. Rather, life calls for balance, flexibility, and adaptability. A person's dominant tendency provides stability and coherence, but the repressed counter-tendency holds the spark of authenticity and freedom. In neglecting this spark, the ego closes like a shell around a pearl, isolating its own light. Such polarization limits creativity and resilience. When we believe ourselves wholly defined by one mode of engagement, we cut ourselves off from a vital source of wholeness. This incomplete perception becomes a barrier to self-awareness and personal development. Consider the introvert who dismisses the world as trivial, the thinker who devalues feeling as soft. Conversely, the extrovert who does not question their outward trust may become a hollow vessel of others' opinions with no inner compass. These patterns are not moral failings, but the ego defending itself, protecting a narrow identity from the threat of unfamiliar territory. The result is a psyche that cannot respond fully to life's demands, nor to its own deeper longings. When we consciously explore the shadow of our type, we begin the work of individuation. The ego no longer clings to its familiar limits. It starts to recognize that what it has disowned has not disappeared, but has become unrecognized parts of itself. Thinking, when extroverted, is concerned with logical systems in the external world. It evaluates according to rules, categories, and consistency in observable reality. It seeks clarity, order, and explanation, often excelling in scientific, legal, or analytical tasks. Or a sensation type may be haunted by images and insights they can't logically place. These eruptions are not disturbances but messages from the unconscious, signals that the neglected function demands recognition. It must form a relationship with the unconscious, not as a subordinate or enemy, but as a guide and companion. This relationship begins with humility, the recognition that we do not know ourselves completely, and that part of our task is to listen to what arises from within. The self often first appears in symbolic form, a mandala, a wise old man, a divine child, or an inner guide. These are not fantasies, but psychological facts, archetypal images that emerge from the unconscious to show us what is missing, what is repressed, what is yet to be realized. Each part of the psyche, even those we fear or reject, has a purpose in the architecture of our being.